That was awesome.
Gladys? I don't know if I want to read after that. I want that book. Are you writing a book?
Well, I do have one, but it's not as funny as this.
Oh, I want that book. That's brilliant, brilliant. Okay. You have to do that, don't you?
Me too.
Okay. This is started out as a 5-minute sketch, and I was just writing what it was like to be in a bus shelter. And so the first 2 paragraphs actually kind of true, but I certainly didn't help the situation, and then it turned into its own short story. So, very short. Amelia stood huddled in her parka and tried to force her body smaller than her 5-foot frame would allow. If it would not have drawn more attention, she would have crouched down in the corner and covered her face with her hands. Amelia wasn't just afraid, she was terrified. He knew it, smelled it, breathed it in, and blew it out, along with the cigar smoke that clung to his denim jacket. Her whole body went rigid as he moved closer, occupying more space than 2 of her. "Relax, lady," his mouth curled in a sneer. "What makes you think you have anything I want?" The disgust on his face was clear, and he was right. She didn't need him to tell her that she had nothing, was nothing. She had been nothing for a long time now. She practiced it, nourished it, her nothingness. 4 years, 11 months, 27 days. The anniversary crept up fast this time. The man moved away and wrenched the door open to wait for the bus outside, more anger than cold in the stomp of his feet. He wasn't dressed for the weather, but it was obviously better than sharing the shelter with a crazy lady who thought she was about to be attacked. Amelia let the tension out slowly, her body limp. She wanted to think that it wasn't him, wasn't his size or strength, or that his attitude rode clearly on the chip on his shoulder. She wanted to, but couldn't. Because it was true. His size, his attitude, his anger, everything designed to make him so very different from her, so very male. He was so sure of himself, sure of her and what she thought. Why couldn't they ever understand? She didn't believe all men were out to get her, but they didn't wear signs, and you couldn't tell the bad from the good until it was too late. Stop it, stop it, stop it, her mind screamed. She wouldn't think of him, of them, of anything. But she thought anyway of the headlines, the phone calls, the reporters always waiting, watching. The fact that she lived, got away, and ended it only made it worse, because she hadn't got away. She carried it with her wherever she went. All those front page pictures looked back at her. Of course, they weren't the ones the police took after he finished with them. Just high school and graduation pictures, some pretty, some plain, full of promise, full of hope. She marked each one of their anniversaries as it came and went, closer and closer to her own. 7 buses stopped here, and they were waiting for the same one. Bad luck for her. Amelia couldn't avoid leaving the shelter and walking to the bus. She passed right beside him, bending in an exaggerated bow, arm extended in a sweeping motion for the benefit of the driver and the other passengers as he allowed her to go first. But Amelia could see the hidden sneer. She sat, small and prim, on the seat reserved for the sick, the pregnant, and the elderly. He took the seat across from her, deliberately taunting her. Amelia's eyes never left the space just above the top of the steering wheel, but she could see with her peripheral vision. He stared at her openly, willing her to look in his direction. But this was a game he couldn't possibly win. 4 years, 11 months, 27 days. She'd had a lot of time to perfect her invisibility. Sooner or later he would tire or get off at another stop. She prayed it would happen before she must leave the relative safety of the bus. Her wish was not granted. When the bus rolled to its last stop before her transfer, he was still on board. But at least he wasn't watching anymore. He'd become bored with the game, tired of baiting someone who didn't fight back. Amelia knew as a victim she wasn't that exciting. There was construction here, and the steps to the upper level of the new parking complex were barricaded. Like most men, he couldn't resist a building site, and he swung his long legs easily over the barricade.